Thanks for hopping on the Zoom today. We are going to talk about the 10 things that you didn't learn in real estate school. So they're oldies but goodies. You don't necessarily have to be a brand new agent, I don't think, to appreciate some of the content that we're going to go over today. So we're just going to jump right in. That's sitting funny on my screen. Is it for you guys too? Can you see that okay? Someone give me a shout out. Can you all see that first screen?
It is sitting a little low.
Yeah, I don't know what. Well, you can see most of it. We'll have to roll with it. I'm not quite sure why it's sitting funny on there. Is that better? Okay, so yes. Lead generation. When I first got into real estate, I didn't necessarily understand that that was my number one job, right? I was excited about listing houses and showing houses to buyers, but without a lead, right, real estate's not going to exist in your world. So you're unemployed. And lead generation, when you're doing it consistently, is how you create a predictable and sustainable business.
Baby, what do you need?
I don't want this. But
there are several different types of lead generation that we can employ. Who wants to take a stab and shout out a couple different types of lead generation? Let's get a list going. I want to make sure that this is participatory.
Facebook messages.
Facebook messages. That's a great way, especially right now. Great way to lead generate. What's another idea? Whether we're in the current state that we're in or not. So open houses would be one. I'll throw one out there. And as a matter of fact, people are still doing open houses. They're just doing them virtually now, right? They're having to get more creative. So we've got Facebook messages, open houses. What are some other ways to lead generate?
Handwritten notes.
Handwritten notes. Those are a great way to lead generate. Those are one of my favorite things to do. I always tell people, what's that?
Call people.
Call people. Yeah,
just pick up the phone and call them.
Absolutely. Simple, right? Just not always easy. All right, so you guys get the idea. Several different types of lead generation that you can be doing on a consistent basis. The key word there is, again, the consistency. You got to make it a part of your everyday routine. That's the best way to ensure that it's going to get done every day, right? So they say you eat the frog first thing in the morning. Gary Keller tells us that we should be doing 2 hours of lead generation first thing in the morning. So you want to make sure that you start with that every day. Well, what happens when you start getting leads from your lead generation? What are you supposed to be doing with those leads? You need to get them into your database right away, right? You need to get them into Command. Hopefully that's what you guys are all utilizing and using right now. And the reason why you want to get them into your database and feed that database daily is so that you can begin to automate the way that you do your lead generation and systemize it. You also have campaigns that you can set them up on in there. That's something that hadn't been mentioned yet, is email campaigns. And the way that Command is designed, it's just really, takes all of the work out of it for you. You put some work in on the front end and you set it and forget it and allow the system to do the work for you. And when I say set it and forget it, I don't mean set it and literally forget it. You still want to make sure that you are doing things outside of your smart plans that you're setting up and your campaigns that you're setting up, and reaching out to your clients, whether it's phone, text, client events, whatever the case may be, because you also have to humanize it. You don't want it to be, completely systemized. Client events is number 4 on the screen there. A lot of agents will host pie giveaway during Thanksgiving time, or give away Christmas wreaths around Christmas. We have some teams in the office that are, pretty regimented as far as the different types of client events that they hold, and it's a way of bringing clients in and, you know, making them feel special and allowing you to get some face time with them to also do some lead generation. So client events are also a great way to lead generate as well. The next slide is you want to make sure that you're being learning based. You know, that's really one of the big things that drew me to Keller Williams when we made the move several years ago was I'm very growth minded. And so being learning based was important to me. And it should be to everyone, right? And you can take part in training in various different ways. You can read books, you can go to conference, you go to networking events, classes online, classes in person. And when I really began to understand the true value of taking time to not just take classes online, but go and attend events in person or take classes in person, is when I started connecting with people and networking with people. Because what that did was it sometimes turned into referrals, right? Maybe I would go to a training in a different part of the city that I don't do a lot of business in, and met an agent from that area who found out I was from the Burnsville area and didn't travel down to my neck of the woods. Sometimes that would turn into sometimes that would turn into, I got distracted, guys, sorry, a text popped up on my phone, I had to put it away. To turn into an opportunity. Also too, just networking as far as connecting with people for opportunities down the road that may exist. Maybe an opportunity will present itself. So make sure that you're being learning based and you're staying on top of the current trends and the changes that are happening in the industry, because those are all things that you can take back to, you know, your clients. All right, mindset. I would say this is probably the absolute biggest challenge for most people, particularly right now during the time that we're in right now. It's so important to have, you know, a great mindset and to be very, very clear on identifying your vision, your goals, your values. I had a conversation with Mo Anderson yesterday, and she's huge on affirmations, particularly when she's faced with challenging times. And one of her favorite affirmations is one that we use in bold, and it's, I'm gonna mess it up already. If you are enthusiastic, be enthusiastic. And as simple as that sounds, it's one that she repeats all the time when she's feeling, you know, down or frustrated or anxious, because it helps bring her energy up. So, you know, self-talk is really important. And I can sometimes be my own worst enemy, right? And when you carry around those negative thoughts, whether, you know, you're expressing them outwardly or you're, you know, just doing the self-talk inwardly, it's going to affect your mindset, and it's going to, you know, find its way into, you know, other areas. So you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that are going to support, you know, a positive mindset and attitude. And when you feel yourself starting to slip into that negative mindset, which we all do, right? We all do from time to time, it's human nature, is to recognize it and recognize it quickly and come up with ways to, you know, pull yourself back up out of that, whether it's a class, whether it's calling a friend or, you know, a coach, just talking through that. So they say you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the type of people that you aspire to be like. And then who you're in business with matters as well. You know, certainly the office, when it's buzzing, you know, with activity, it's full of good energy and positive people. So you want to make sure that you're placing yourself there as much as possible. And if you're having a bad day attitudinally, you know, take a day off, take a mental health day. It's okay to do that. All right. We talked about consistency on screen 1. That is really where you win when it comes to real estate. I can't tell you the number of times when I would hold an open house and meet a client and follow up with them only for them to comment that, you know, I was the only one who followed up with them after a weekend of open houses. And I was shocked by that, shocked by the number of agents who will have great conversations with folks, engaging conversations with folks, and maybe jot it down on a Post-it note and forget to put it into the database, or, you know, just not get back to them. So I found what helped me stay consistent or be consistent was to follow a schedule, right? We all know about time blocking, or we should. For those who don't, you want to make sure that you're creating a schedule that you can use to hold yourself accountable in order to stay consistent. So we talked about eating the frog earlier. I always think of lead gen as my frog because it's probably my least favorite thing to do in the formal sense of the word. I like networking and meeting with people and having conversation, but making sure that you're doing that lead gen first thing in your day, and then be fully committed to whatever time it is you set up for yourself, but be fully committed. And then also have those systems in place that we talked about, because once you have that system in place, and sometimes it can take some time on the front end getting those in place, right? And I think one of the biggest mistakes new agents make is not setting those systems up properly in the beginning, because they just want to get to the work. And, you know, inevitably what happens is you'll have a lead or two or more slip through the cracks because you're not systemizing things. So always keeping that prospecting on your radar is so important, because no matter where you're at in your real estate career, what you're doing right now shows up in 90 days, right? So if all of a sudden you get busy and focus on the busy work and stop with the lead generation, you're going to look up 90 days from now and things are going to be pretty quiet. So never stop pumping new leads into the pipeline. All right, time blocking. So you want to prioritize your day. You know, I tend to put my least favorite tasks or some of my more challenging tasks on my calendar at the beginning of the day, just to, you know, tackle them head on. I find that when I don't, I begin to avoid them, and then I get to the end of the day and they haven't gotten done. So make sure that you're creating a schedule. I try to look at my schedule every evening before, you know, I shut down for the day, so that I know what's on the agenda for the following day, and I have what I need in order to be able to accomplish my goals. But if you create a schedule, you got to be sure that you're going to protect it, right? You have to take the time to protect your schedule, because you can have the best day laid out for yourself. And if you allow little distractions to creep in, it doesn't matter what kind of time blocked calendar you have if you're not gonna protect it. And know that sometimes you're gonna fail, and it's okay. Just make sure that you're failing forward, and if you know you make a mistake, that you're learning from it. So they say fail fast and fail often, because that's where the real learning happens. By the way, if you guys have any questions as we're going through any of this, just shout them out. The next thing that I would say is, you know, really important is to make sure that you're mastering your scripts, whether you're doing, you know, role play in, you know, PC coaching, or, you know, if you're not in productivity coaching, finding a partner or someone in your world who is willing to do regular script practicing with you, and make sure that you're throwing objections at each other. Don't make it easy. I often tell people, you know, don't partner up with someone you know really well or that you're good friends with, because they tend to let you off the hook versus, you know, someone who maybe you don't know as well. Throw out good objections, role play, and just get your scripts down really well. You know, when I first was introduced to the idea of scripts, it was really when we came to Keller Williams. I had, you know, been at another company 10 years prior to that, and I thought, I don't want to sound scripted. You know, I want to sound like me. Like, I don't want to sound like, for lack of a better term, no offense if anyone's been in the car business, but I didn't want to sound like a used car salesman. And then I started engaging in things like Bold and taking part in the training, and realized that when scripts are done well, they don't sound like scripts. You know, think about one of your favorite movies or a TV show that you like, right? Those folks are all scripted, but you're not thinking that when you're, you know, watching them. You're typically, you know, just caught up in the story or whatever's happening at the moment. So what I realized was, by mastering scripts, that it did allow me to sound like me. It also allowed me to be a better listener when I was speaking with a potential client or with a client, because I wasn't in my mind thinking of what I was going to say next or how I was going to handle the objection that, you know, they were presenting, if they were going to present one. Because I knew my script so well, it just was automatic. It flowed much better. So don't overlook how important mastering your scripts are. All right. So we have done our lead generation. We've, you know, put the person into our database, and we've practiced our scripts. We've had great conversations. Once you've done all of that, you have to be able to track where you're at, because you're going to be meeting, you know, people all the time, and they're going to be in different phases, and you have to be able to track your goals. So in order to track your goals, we talked about, you want to set them first, and then you have to visit them regularly. You want to make sure that you're visiting them regularly so that you know whether or not you're on track for the goals that you set for yourself. And it's also a great way to be able to hold yourself accountable to your goals. Are you exceeding them? Are you a little behind on them? Are there things that you have to put in place in order to, you know, increase your activity to get caught up? Just gotta make sure you're tracking your goals. And then follow up. Follow up is also where you win the battle. And the reason why follow up is so important is because, again, you can have the greatest conversation at an open house and things can go really well, but if you're not putting them into a database, or, you know, sending them the link to your app, or setting them up on a home search, then things are just going to stop right there. They're not going to go any further. So you have to make sure that you're being armed with data that you can provide them, email them, possibly, you know, give them a call about a property that maybe you came across that's not yet on the market. It helps you create that sense of urgency to engage them, to get them out looking at properties, or to invite you over to do a listing appointment. So you want to make sure that you're following up with your clients. And then that person who you're going to role play with or practice scripts with could also be an accountability partner for yourself. Find one. It could be a coach, another agent in the office. It doesn't matter who it is. You just need to find someone that you can share your goals with, that is going to hold you accountable, and you feel comfortable enough that you can be completely transparent with them on maybe some of the challenges that you're facing. And you want someone who's going to use, Diana Kokoska likes to use the words care and candor a lot, that they're going to be honest with you and provide you with valuable feedback. Of course, you want them to do it with care, but you want them to be, you know, just as honest and candid and transparent with you as you are with them. So the other nice thing about having an accountability partner is just an extra person to bounce ideas off. I always say, why reinvent the wheel? You know, don't do that to yourself. Have a conversation with folks around you and ask questions about, you know, what's working for them, what's not working for them. You know, don't be afraid to ask if they'd be willing to share a particular tool or item that they have either created themselves or utilized. All right, any questions? You guys have any questions? Let's kind of open it up for question and answer. What do you guys, for those of you who are, because I understand that we have a few guests that might not be in real estate on the line right now, but for those of you who are in real estate, what have you found has been a challenge for you thus far? Anybody?
Well, I'm not licensed yet. They closed the testing center before I had a chance. So I'm just curious, what does eat the frog mean?
Eat the frog. So when we say eat the frog, the sound of that isn't very pleasing, right? So that is tackling the task ahead of you, and or the task that you have for the day that maybe you're looking forward to the least. Maybe you have to make a phone call and have a tough conversation with someone about something, or maybe it's, for a lot of people, it's lead generation. It's picking up the phone and having conversations with people in lead generation. So that's what eat the frog means. Like, just get it out of the way, right?
Okay, thank you.
That you bet. That was a lesson I learned early on, the hard way, as a real estate agent. I had written an offer for a client, and the listing agent presented our offer, and the seller verbally accepted it, but we didn't have it signed, sealed, and delivered back yet. And I called my clients and was super excited, and so were they. And I told them they got the house. And the next morning, the agent contacted me, and another offer had come in overnight, and they decided to accept that one instead. And I felt horrible because I had told my clients that they had gotten the house. And now, I mean, he did kind of a crappy thing. He didn't call us, give us an opportunity to, renegotiate. But the lesson I learned there was, well, it was a couple things. I learned now I never tell my folks that they got it until I have, the docs back, signed, sealed, and delivered. And I wasn't looking forward to that phone call. And I called my mentor at the time, and he said, make the phone call. The longer you wait to make it, the harder it's going to get. And so I followed his advice, and made the phone call right away. Have you guys ever been in a situation, I'm sure you have, where you're not looking forward to a conversation and having to let someone down, or maybe it's you feel guilty because a friend called and left a message and you haven't called them back, and the longer you wait to make that phone call, sometimes the harder it becomes because the guilt just kind of builds. What else? What other questions?
Can you give an example of failing forward? I love that term, and it's, obviously none of us want to fail, but
Yeah.
A little more on what that means.
Yeah. Okay. So failing forward, let me, so I think a lot of agents just getting into the business, one of their greatest fears is writing their first purchase agreement, right? Because it's a legally binding contract, and so that could be a little scary. And that kind of failing forward, you probably want to do in more of a coaching session, atmosphere rather than real life. Although, sometimes it happens. It would be pretty rare for you to make a really huge mistake on a purchase agreement that you can't come back from. Oh gosh, Sarah, failing forward. I feel like I've had so many of those situations in real estate. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time coming up with one off the cuff, but I would say, not lead generating on a consistent basis early enough,
Or letting letting the people that say no or that are rude stop you from continuing to make the phone calls.
Yeah, that's a great example. When I do lead generation in the training room, when I teach Ignite, and it's time for everyone to get out their phones and make the calls, it's interesting how many people have to get up and use the bathroom, or, run and get something from their office, or, I don't know, they'll just sit on their computer, and they're afraid to make the phone call. And it kind of goes back to that eating the frog, whoever asked that question, like, just pick up the phone and make the call. Because I've done a full day of lead gen, several times throughout my career. And you could do a full 8-hour day of lead gen, and you might have one, maybe two people that are crappy. And I say, you know what, great. I'm excited when I get the crappy person, because then I know I've gotten them out of the way for the day. But yeah, to Sarah's point, don't let that stop you from picking up the phone and, calling the next person. Because I think that by and large, folks they're happy to hear from you, especially if you're coming from contribution when you make the phone call and it's about them and not about you. How are you? How's your day? How's the family? How's it going? Anything in your world I can help you with? When you start asking questions like that, generally what happens is they return the same type of questions. So, yeah, what else? What else you guys got? Any other fears for those who aren't in the business yet that you're hanging on to, or things that you're worried about?
I guess for me, I am licensed and everything, but it's been just time management because I work another full-time job too. So just being able to manage my time and fit everything in every day has been difficult, especially lately, like the past week. So that's kind of one thing that I've been struggling with and just trying to get better at, I guess.
Okay. So are you time blocking and creating a schedule? And
I try to, but it's like I have not been able to stick with it this past week. So I think I definitely need to be more strict about time blocking and making sure I stick to it.
yeah, it's a challenge, right? Even with the best intentions and and having time blocking in place and having your systems in order, again, we're human, distraction happens. That's why it's so important to have all of these things, like the accountability partner, a coach. Sarah's on the line. She's a coach. It's great having, someone like that in your world, particularly when I'm not just when you're getting into the business. I've got a coach now. I've been in the business 18 years. So having some sort of coach or mentor in your world definitely helps, because you're going to have to check in with them and they're going to be asking the tough questions. So that's something that I wish I would have done much, much earlier in my real estate career, is hired a coach. And, at that time I thought, how can I afford one? And now I look at it from the perspective of how can I not afford to have one?
Oh, if I didn't have Sarah, I don't know what I would do.
Right? I know.
She saves me.
We all need a Sarah in our world, that's for sure.
Yes.
What else, guys? What other questions do you have? What other concerns are you feeling?
I have a question of so you take all the classes, you pass all the tests, you licensed, you lead gen every day, but then what? What's the next step? Let's say somebody's I'm interested. Then what do you do?
Well, it depends on, is it a buyer? Is it a listing? If it's a listing, then the next step is, when can I come out to the house and sit down and do a listing presentation? If it's a buyer, it's like, all right, let me get you set up on automated search, or, give me your search criteria and, let me spend some time locating some properties that we can go look. It's getting in front of them and staying in front of them and engaging them on, what the next steps are. So, if you're doing your lead generation, you come across a buyer and they're excited, heck, set them up on a search. Start sending them properties, let them know that you're available to go out and show them houses when they, come across some that appeal to them. There's so many people in the beginning who are worried about perfecting their listing presentation or perfecting their buyer presentation to the point to where they just paralyze themselves, right? And what I used to tell people, what I still tell people, that I'm coaching is, forget all of that. It's never going to be perfect. Those things are ever changing and evolving. Your one and only job today is to go out and find a piece of business. I don't care if you haven't ever filled out a buyer rep agreement or a purchase agreement, or it doesn't matter that you don't know how to list a home. Just go out and find that piece of business and bring it back to the office. And I guarantee you there will be someone who can help you with all that other stuff.
And you'll learn it a lot faster when you have to do it.
Yes.
Versus when you are sitting in trainings, which are also very helpful. But when you have an appointment on Saturday and it's Tuesday and you need to get ready, you're going to learn that pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Sarah. And so where the rubber meets the road is in doing the activities. And you don't want to be that person who's forever getting ready, right? We call it analysis paralysis, right? And sometimes I suffer from it too, but I'm an implementer. So I like to do, which sometimes can be dangerous because um, or I have to, not dangerous, but sometimes I have to be careful because I am someone who's more apt to just go out and start doing and not having things, in place, which sometimes can then frustrate me when it comes time to implement systems and things of that nature. But I would say in the beginning, so that you don't burn yourself out and you don't get frustrated, focus on the lead generation, because all of the other stuff is going to come. All of the other stuff's going to come. And after being in real estate for 18 years, my systems still aren't perfect. They probably never will be, which drives me crazy because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. But you just have to be okay with things being messy. They're just going to be messy. You can certainly help control that and mitigate that to a certain degree, but that's where the focus really needs to be. You just need to get out there and do. And, people like Sarah who coach, people like myself, who coach and mentor agents will be there to help support you. At the same time, though, and to Sarah's point, the trainings and the classes are important. I'm not saying, don't go to them at all, because also what you don't want to happen is show a buyer a house on a Friday night at 7:00 and they're, ready to write and you can't get a hold of anyone, right? So make sure, that would be highly unusual that you can't get a hold of anyone, but be sure to go to the classes so that you have a general idea of what you need to have ready to go, right? Or if you have an appointment on a Saturday and you think it's likely you might be writing an offer, engage someone in the office, a mentor or your coach, ahead of time to let them know, so that, they can sit you down and say, okay, you're going to need this form, this form, this form, and this form. The beauty of the way that we run business right now is that a lot of it is done electronically. So you could go out and show a buyer homes and, you can tell that they're excited and you're excited. And at the same time, you're nervous because it's going to be the first offer that you write. You can say, you know what, guys, go home, grab dinner, talk about it. I'm going to call you in about an hour. I just want you to kind of discuss, the terms that you think you might want to offer. And then in that hour's time, you can, race home, call your coach, get the documents in order, pretty much get them all prepared before you have to pick up the phone and have that conversation with them. So whereas before in real estate, after we were done looking at houses, we drove back to the office together, sat down in the conference room and wrote the purchase agreement because we didn't have things like electronic signatures. So, just be creative. It's that good old fake it until you make it. We'll get you what you need when you need it. What else? What other questions do you guys have? Don't be shy. I know you got a few. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
Not really a question, but just kind of going off of how you said the listing packet and all those packets don't have to be perfect. I was really worried about that too at first. Like, oh my gosh, if I get a listing appointment, my packet isn't exactly what I want it to be. And it really didn't matter at all. Like, I've already changed it probably 10 times since then anyway. And when you're presenting it to your clients, they don't know that it's not exactly what you want it to be. Like, if you're just giving them the information and, something to take away, I think that's really all they care about.
Absolutely. They don't know any better. They
Right.
really don't.
And they might not even be paying attention to half of it anyway.
Well, yeah, especially if it's a listing presentation, honestly, what
they want the comps.
Yeah, that's what they know at the end of the day. How much, what's the price?
Right.
And if you, take an hour with this big fancy, 22-page listing presentation, they're likely going to be irritated by the time, you get to that. I remember as a brand new agent so here's the failing forward story for you, Sarah, if you're still on.
All right. I am.
I used to, oh my goodness. Well, a couple of them that I just thought of. I've sat at people's kitchen tables or been in their homes for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And in my mind, as a new agent, eager agent, I thought, the more time I spent there, the more I was ingratiating myself with them, right? Like they gotta love me. I spent 2 hours in their home. In retrospect now, I can laugh at that thinking I must have been just irritating the heck out of those people, right? They probably had kids to bathe and homework to do. And here I am sitting in their home chattering, for an hour and a half. And now my goal is to be in and out with docs signed in under an hour. 45 minutes actually is my goal. And so I can't tell you how many times I probably did that. The other thing I used to do is I used to walk around the house with them from, room to room to room, and that would add a good 20 minutes to my listing presentation. And now I have a form that I give them that they sit down and fill out when I first get there. And while they're filling out the form, I ask if it's okay if I can walk through the house, because, I can walk through it pretty quickly and figure out what I need to know, doing it that way. Another failing forward story is, as a brand new agent, when I would do open houses, I would do, something similar to that and just follow folks around room to room to room, talking to them while, they were looking at the house, again, thinking that, I was gonna, question them to death is what I was doing, but thinking I was building rapport with them, right? And I've completely changed the way that I do open houses now, and I give them the freedom and room to roam around the house, and then hit them with the questions as they come back through. So those are just a couple of stories. I think I was just so eager to get the business and learn the business that I just overdid it in some ways. So I think I've learned to dial it back and let things happen a little bit more naturally instead of trying to force them to happen. That definitely has helped. What else? Sarah, what are you seeing a lot of the questions revolving around when you're coaching?
A lot of the analysis paralysis. I love that term. I hadn't heard that before. I've always called it like getting ready to get ready to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
And, people wanting a listing presentation, a buyer presentation, a pre-listing packet, wanting all of this stuff. And I the PC agents that are on here will know, I've always said, go get the appointment and then we'll get you ready. Like
Mm-hmm.
the spending 2 hours making your listing presentation look pretty didn't bring you any business.
Right.
So, this was just a great class and a great reminder on the things that we all need to be doing, but especially agents that are getting started and want to start strong.
Yeah.
The lead gen, everything that you said in here is how you build a strong, healthy, profitable business.
Yeah. And by the way, all of those things are already created for you at Keller Williams.
Yeah.
You just have to find them online. They're already created for you. And there's no reason why you can't, use those from the very beginning. What you'll find as you get into the business, and you've been in the business, a few years, is that your listing presentations will change and evolve.
Yeah.
They're forever changing. I'm sure, yours has changed a few times, Sarah.
Same. Many times. Yeah.
Yeah. The essential nuts and bolts, the format of it will stay the same, but you're, deleting or adding or updating.
Mm-hmm.
Same with your buyer presentation. My buyer presentation is essentially the same as it's always been because I have it, systemized, but, it changes from time to time. So to Sarah's point, just do the lead gen, get out, find the piece of business, bring it back to the office, and we'll help you with the rest. We'll get you what you need.
We've been doing buyer and seller boot camps. So for the paperwork that you were referencing, if it's a Saturday night and you're writing an offer for the first time and you can't get a hold of anybody, the idea is that the buyer boot camp, you've already filled it out, you've already seen it, and ideally you've even seen it a couple of times. And so sure, you might have a question or two, but you should be able to do it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay if you can't get a hold of someone right away. It's okay to let your clients know, hey, it might be a couple hours before I can get back with you, but we'll make sure that we get this written up and taken care of tonight,
Exactly.
submitted tonight. So, I mean, for all they know, when you part ways with them, you're, going to meet with another client. So it might be a couple of hours.
Yeah.
What else? So we talked about lead generation. We talked about feeding your database every day. We talked about being growth minded, the importance of that. Everything starts with mindset. Having a great mindset is key. Consistency is key. Time blocking is what will allow you to operate in a more consistent manner. Talked about the importance of mastering your scripts and your objection handlers. Tracking your goals. Follow up is where you win. And, get that accountability partner. Make sure that you're getting that accountability partner.
To Sarah with an H had asked earlier about you're doing lead gen and now you have someone who kind of raises their hand and says, okay, I want to sell, or I'm thinking about buying. And I think you're doing lead gen every day, but you're also doing that follow-up every day. You should be doing both every day.
Yeah.
And they're not the same thing.
No, they're not. So your lead gen, generally, you want to get that done in the morning, and then your afternoon is for the follow-up, whether the follow-up is out showing houses or the follow-up is preparing for a listing presentation. So the follow-up should be activities that are created due to your lead generation.
Yep.
What else?
Don't feel that you're being annoying when you're following up too.
Yeah.
Like if they don't respond to you, just keep following up. I have a couple of people who just don't respond, but then all of a sudden they one day do, and they're like, okay, now we want to move forward or whatnot. So not everybody responds to you every single time.
Yes.
Don't
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up. I get that a lot. I'll, when I'm coaching with someone, how did your conversation with Joe go? Oh, well, he's not returning my call. He must have hired someone else. And I'll say, no, keep calling Joe until he answers or tells you to stop. Like literally, because what happens is we begin to create the story in our minds, right? I mean, I'm famous for this. I create a story in my mind, stay in curiosity. Maybe Joe just got busy, or maybe Joe came down with, the flu, or maybe Joe was on vacation, or, there could be a million different reasons why Joe hasn't gotten back to you yet, right? Life is happening for Joe too, just like it does us. And so I think when we feel like we have a hot one on the line and then all of a sudden they go, quiet, they go dark on us, we have that moment of, that self-defeat, like, oh, I thought I had a connection, maybe I didn't, maybe he went in a different direction, or he probably hired someone else. You have to fight the urge to, throw in the towel when you don't hear back from someone right away. And my mantra is keep calling until they answer or they tell you to stop. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose at that point? So that's a great point. What else?
I've told people in coffee that, like, when I ask them, do they want to buy this? Do they want to buy that? They go, you just keep asking. And I said, I got nothing to lose but my pride. And I have a lot of that.
Good attitude. That's a good attitude.
Hey, just wanted to say thank you for this. So I'm going for a listing presentation, and you said just tweak a little this and that, and that's what I've done. And I'm off. All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ronnie.
Bye, Ronnie. Thanks for hanging out with us. Anything else you guys want to chat about? Any other questions, burning questions, concerns? Now's the time. Sometimes it's just a matter of you don't know what you don't know yet, right?
Yep.
So the good news is, you've likely are already with Keller Williams, or you're considering Keller Williams, or intend on, coming to Keller Williams once you can get your testing done. The good news is you've chosen, a fantastic environment, an environment that's full of support and folks that are willing to help you along the way. So just know that you're not going to have all of the answers, right? I'm still learning after 18 years. It's one of the things that I love about real estate is I'm still learning. So don't feel like you have to have everything hammered out and all of the answers, right away, because there'll always be someone there to help get you through whatever it is you're working with at the moment. So
Absolutely.
with
Erin?
that, if there aren't any other questions, I will let
Erin?
you. Yes.
Steve Rawl here. Just want to thank you for sharing and some great ideas. I know Gary says you can't multitask, but I was I was reviewing files and listening at the same time. So
Oh, good.
heard lots of great ideas. So thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
So for the PC agents, we'll be kind of bring your ahas to group coaching tonight or Thursday. And Erin, I want to reiterate what Steve said. Thank you. Thank you
Oh.
for your time, and thank
Yep.
you for your expertise.
You guys are more than welcome. Get out there and crush it.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Thank
Thank you, Erin.
Bye.